So welcome everyone. We will talk a bit about DevSecOps in that talk. But before we start, I would like to know who here is using today tools that let them to find and track the hidden vulnerabilities inside the dependencies. Okay? And in those people, who is not on NPM? No, okay. So the thing is that today there's only a few people doing that, and not doing it can be a real problem. Okay, so, oops, I lost the image, sorry. In fact, when you are not trying to understand what's going on inside your dependencies, you are facing a risk that is really well depicted by this quote. That comes from a movie. Do you know from which movie I'm talking about? No? That's the Alien movie. Who have seen that movie? Okay. So now do you see which scene I'm talking about? No? So this is a scene when you can see people eating around a table. And one of the guys was complaining about the taste of the food. And suddenly, it looks like he's suffering a lot. And people don't understand what's going on. One of his friends, thinking he was making a joke, said, "The food ain't that bad, man." Suddenly, there is an alien embryo that just burst the chest of the guy. Remember now? So I didn't put any picture of that because that's pretty scary. But the guy had that in his chest for several weeks, and he didn't know it. And that's basically the same. That's a bit pushy, but that's basically the same. If today you are not trying to know if it exists some security vulnerabilities inside your dependencies, one day it will come out, and it will hurt a lot. So before we continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Julien Topçu. I'm a lead dev at La Société Générale. I'm also a member of the OWASP Foundation. Who knows OWASP? Great. So, for people that don't know OWASP, this is a not-for-profit organization that defines security best practices like the OWASP Top 10, and it also provides open source tools to strengthen the security of your application. So I will keep the image of the alien to talk to you about the vulnerabilities. So I know that most of the people here may have not seen an alien in their life, but that's it. So you have to know that there is a public database over the internet that is named the National Vulnerability Database, and like you can imagine, that is hosted by the US government. So in that database, all the vulnerabilities are reported, and those reports are made against the CVE normalization, which is the common vulnerability and exposure. That's why usually when there is a report statement of vulnerabilities on internet, you have that kind of IDs here that start with CVE. Then you have the date where the vulnerability has been found, and a sequence of number. So let me show you how it looks like in the real world. So that's the National Vulnerability Database. And here we have the Heartbleed vulnerability. I don't know if some of you have heard about that. It was a glitch in the implementation of OpenSSL, of the TLS protocol. So in those reports, you can find again the global ID. There is a description telling you what is the vulnerability, and then we have an impact analysis. Here you can find a score, okay? We'll talk about that a bit later. You just have to know that it will bring you an important information, which is the severity of your vulnerability. A set of links where you will find more information about your vulnerability. And so what has been made, it exists a dictionary which is named the Common Weakness Enumeration, which gather all the type of vulnerability you can have. That's why here for buffer error, you have a kind of ID that starts with CWE, okay? But what is the most important here is the list of the impacted components. So here we can see that it's OpenSSL from the version 101 till the version 102 beta 1. So that is a CV report. So now, we know how they looks like, but there are a lot of them, okay? And the little green guy here may be really annoying, but he's not that dangerous. But Thanos here is a really bad guy. When he snaps his finger, half of the room has disappeared. So how can we know how much dangerous is a vulnerability? So in security, we have our own Richter scale, which is named Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS. How it works? That's a basic calculator that takes in parameter the criteria of your vulnerability. Does it require to be authenticated to exploit the vulnerability? Do the information you can disclose are sensitive or not? Are they sensitive or not? And it will provide you a score between 0 and 10. 10 is the highest level of criticity. Okay. So now we will see how to find them and track them in our application. So OWASP is providing two open source tools. Their names are Dependency Check and Dependency Track. So Dependency Check exists in several forms. But here we will see only the plugin Jenkins, the Jenkins plugin. So how it works? It looks for all the dependencies of your application, and it will query the NVD database to know if it has been reported vulnerabilities on them. If so, it will compile a report that you can upload on SonarQube. I think that everyone here knows Sonar. But you can also upload it on another tool, which is named Dependency Track. So this is Dependency Track is a vulnerability management system, okay, which really looks like Sonar, but it provides more feature around security. Okay. They are open source, so you can fork them on GitHub. So let's continue with the demo. I will start with Dependency Track to show you how it looks like. Okay, so we'll skip that first page. What is the most important here is that page. And unfortunately, I have a little glitch. Okay. So in that page, you have the list of the analyzed application of our security, continuous security pipeline. For each of them, you will have the sum up of the potential vulnerabilities Dependency Check has found in the NVD database, okay? So here in the right, in red, you have the critical vulnerabilities. The high in orange, the medium in yellow, and the green one are the lowest vulnerabilities in terms of criticity, okay? But there are only potential vulnerabilities, okay? We'll talk about that a bit later. So let's take a deeper look at one of the services. We have a tab here that lists all the dependencies of our application, which are version, okay, and the known, a sum up of the known vulnerability on them, again on the right, okay? Here, Dependency Track has detected that we are on a Maven-based project, okay? So what it does in that case, it will query the Maven central repository to know if it exists a newer version of your dependencies. Why? Because the oldest is your dependency, highest is the risk to have a documented vulnerability on it. If you found a new version of your dependency, you will have a little yellow warning here that will indicate you which version, what is the newest version in the repo. This is also working with the NPM project. I will show you later. Okay, so now we can switch to the audit view. I hope it's enough big for the people in the back. It's okay? Okay. So here we have the list of the potential vulnerabilities. It's not because it has been reported on your application that you are actually vulnerable, okay? So you have the name of the impacted component, its version, the CVID again, the type of vulnerability in the CWE, remember, and its severity, okay? So I'm proposing you to do a kind of triaging session to understand how it works and why sometimes we can have kind of false positive. So let's start with the first one. So when you click at it, you will have a description. That's basically what you can find in the National Vulnerability Database. So here it says that in the Springwood version I'm using in my application, I'm potentially vulnerable to an attack that lets an attacker to run arbitrary Java code in my application through a patch request with a crafted JSON. Okay. The thing is here, it uses Spring Data REST. It requires Spring Data REST, but my application doesn't use it at all. So what can I say? I can say to Dependency Track, I'm not concerned, I'm not affected by this vulnerability, okay? Not affected, fine. And then I can click on suppress so that it will no longer be taken into account by the system. So that was an easy one. So let's take a look to this one, okay? This one is trickier. So here it says that in the version of Jackson data format XML I'm using, if I'm using the XML mapper, I can be vulnerable to an XXE attack. Who knows what is an XXE attack? No? So I'm proposing you, okay. So I'm proposing you to check it on my application. So the application is running background, and you will see that it's a little read-dummy application. It has just a single endpoint transfer, and you can just transfer data, okay? So here I have an XML request, okay? I'm defining the name of my transfer and the content I want to transfer to the server. Okay, pretty simple. I'm sending it to the server. It will answer with a status, okay? Okay, so pretty simple. So now we'll try to exploit the XXE attack. So you have to know that in XML, we are able to define entities that doesn't belong to the schema of your XML. To do such, you open a doc type, you define an entity with an arbitrary name. Here I have chosen file, okay? It exists several types of entity, but here I'm only using the system one. I won't talk about that much because it's pretty complicated. And I have defined a path, okay? And as you can see in the transfer name, I'm using the reference of my entity, okay? Just remember that in the response, the server inline the name of the transfer I'm sending to him, okay? So what will happen? So the server are just inline the content of the file in the transfer name, okay? And to show you that it's not a hard-coded behavior, I will change the path. Okay? So now I got the content of the current directory. I'm changing the directory, and I have the content of my program file directory. What we just have done here, guys? You don't know? We have created the first remote file browser over XML over REST. That's awesome. But that's a big security issue. So that's an XXE attack, okay? So what we have to do here, we have to say that unfortunately, this is exploitable on my application, okay? So we were able to find a real security vulnerability on our application. But now, how can we fix that? So here we have no luck, because usually the version that fixes the problem is inside the description itself. as you can see, if I'm moving back to this one, it says that I'm affected if I'm using Spring Data REST prior to 2.6.9. Yes. But here, in this one, there is no information about that. Okay, unfortunately. So what we can do, we can click on the CVID. So we will land on a page that contains pretty much the same things than the NVD database, okay? And on the right here, you have the base score, which is the CVSS score. As you can see, this is really close to 10, so it's really, really critical. And once again, we have no luck. There is no more information on that. So what we can do, we can click here, okay? And we will land on the National Vulnerability Database. Why? Because if you remember, I said that at the end, we'll have the list of the impacted components. So here it says that we are impacted if we are using Jackson until the version 2.7.3, including the version 2.7.3. Okay, let's check it. In the release note of Jackson 2.7.4, we can see that they have made something to disable by default the external entities. Okay, let's check it. Okay, so I'm going to IntelliJ. I'm changing the version of my dependency. So if you are using Spring, you should not do that this way. You should upgrade Spring to the version that will fix the problem directly through the BOM. Okay. So I'm restarting my application. Okay, it doesn't want to restart. So demo effect. Oh no, it's restarting. Okay, I'm restarting it twice because sometimes it doesn't take into account the change. I don't know why. Okay, so let's try the attack again. Problem has been fixed. So as you can see, with those tools, we are able to detect security vulnerabilities in our systems and fix them. So how does it work? So remember at the beginning, I was talking about a tool that you can integrate to Jenkins. So let's go to Jenkins. So there is a simple Jenkins plugin. You install it in Jenkins, and you create a new freeform job. That job will be dedicated to the analysis of your application. So to configure it, that's pretty simple. You just have to add a build step like this. Invoke dependency check analysis. Here, I set the path that contains all my dependencies. But that's not required. Because if you are using a Maven project or NPM one, it will automatically detect your package.json or your pom.xml and parse the dependencies for you. Then you can also publish the result to Jenkins through the post-build action named publish dependency check result, but that's not really helpful. It will just generate a little report like this one. You can just browse the result, but you won't be able to do much with that. Okay? So with that, we are able to generate a report of the potential vulnerabilities or the dependencies we are using. So now, let's see for Dependency Track. So Dependency Track offers a Docker image. Okay, so that's pretty simple to install. 3 command lines. You just have to know that by default, it comes with an H2 database, an embedded one, and it's not recommended to use that in production. You should rather use a real SQL server. Once it's up and running, you have to create a new project on which will be uploaded the result of the report. So I'm creating a Voxxed one, okay? And to connect Jenkins to Dependency Track, we have to generate an API key, okay? So to do that, we are going to the Administration tab, Access Management, Teams. Here we have a list of the built-in roles of Dependency Track, okay? So we'll use the automation one because this is dedicated to interact with external tools. And here we can generate or reuse an existing one, okay? By copying it, we'll move to Jenkins. We install the Dependency Track plugin, and in the global settings, manage Jenkins, configure system. That's the old version of Jenkins. Okay. You just have to set the address of Dependency Track with the API key. So now they are able to communicate together. So what we want to do now is to publish the result to Dependency Track. So going back to the Jenkins job, we had the post-build action in which we select the project where we want to upload the result. I just created Voxxed, as you may have seen. You put the name of the report that is generated by Dependency Check, and because the plugin today, Dependency Track supports several analyzers, you still have to define which analyzer has made the report, okay? And with that, you have your full continuous security pipeline, okay? So that's pretty easy, as you can see. So what about Dependency Track? So Dependency Track also supports, like I said, NPM-based applications, as you can see here, okay? Instead of going to the National Vulnerability Database, it will use the NPM Public Advisory Repository. But that's basically working the same way, okay? So just to show you one of them, like this one, okay? As you can see, even if this is not the same kind of database, they share the same nomenclature for the security types, vulnerability types. Okay, so Dependency Track also supports notification in your favorite tools, chat tools like Slack and Teams. And what it provides that Sonar doesn't provide to us is that he's able to detect new vulnerabilities in the National Vulnerability Database. And it will automatically update the existing report without triggering a new analysis. What is obvious is that if you had a new dependency, he won't be able to know. So you have to run again with Dependency Check and upload the report. Okay, so one other feature also that doesn't exist in Sonar is that you are able to flag security vulnerabilities across several projects, for the whole portfolio. To do that, there is in the vulnerabilities tab of the component view. The component view will gather all the dependencies that are used in your whole portfolio. Here there's an audit mode, okay? And with that, you will be able to flag it for the whole portfolio, okay? Okay, so that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. I hope it has convinced you to move for DevSecOps. I would like to thank you and to thank Axel Heartbleed, who has made the pictures of that talk. And you can find the retranscription of it on Medium. Thank you very much. Yes? So yeah, I don't remember by default what Dependency Check does, but it exists a Maven plugin on which you can define the scope you want. I think that by default it will analyze until the runtime dependencies, perhaps the provided one. I have to check. But if you want to also detect what's going on in your tests, that's possible because the Maven plugin allows you to do that. Yes? Sorry, I cannot hear you. Okay, so you can, in the old version of Dependency Check plugin, you were able to do that, but that's not recommended because a new vulnerability doesn't mean that you are actually vulnerable. So what is preferred here is to use kind of alerts through Dependency Track, because each time something new, a new vulnerability comes, you will have to do a triaging session to know if you are actually vulnerable to it. And sometimes it can be very long. The best strategy you can have when you have an issue like that is by default, if you can upgrade, upgrade. Okay? But if you cannot, because it brings some breaks to upgrade to the new version, you have to figure out what's going on, you know? So it may be really harmful to block every build for that. Usually that kind of stuff, you should not run it each time. You can run it each time you introduce a new vulnerability, a new dependency, or at least once a day, because those tools will download a copy of the national database, an update of it once a day. Yes? Yeah, you mean Jenkins file? Yes. Any other questions? So thank you very much.